So Doris, I think it's different for every author, but does writing energize you or exhaust you?
Both, absolutely both. At different parts of a novel. Well, I think most writers have days when they think, as I do, oh, this is going in the wastebasket. I know it, but I just need to keep going. I'll put it down and I'll revise it. I'll make it better later. And then there are some days when things come that just are so exciting, where it's eureka, eureka, oh, of course. And I really like doing dialogue. And when you have characters bouncing off each other, and it isn't something that I plan out ahead of time. And let me tell you, I'm a realistic writer also in the sense that I know generally what I'm writing about before I start, but I don't know the real ending. And because to me in real life, characters come into a situation and they're affected by it, and they develop and change. And that for me is the exciting part of writing, where you find that this has happened to them and they change, and then that interacts with something else. And so that's why I can never say. And then others write differently, like Terry Fallis, who said, well, I just couldn't write like those writers who don't know what they're doing. I have to have it set out, and he has every chapter set out before he writes it, and he knows every chapter almost to the end. And other writers will write like that, but mine is more the seeing what happens and how it changes as it goes. Mm-hmm.
How many hours a day do you write?
Well, I'm so fortunate now in that I can write almost for as long as I want to. When I wrote my first novel, that was also ideal circumstances, because I'd finished my thesis and my husband agreed that I wouldn't get a job and I would just write that novel that I'd been wanting to do. And I did that in the space of from September to June. And I wrote every day, say something like 9 until 3 or 4, and that was ideal. Nothing was really interfering. And then after I published my first novel, my life plan was now I can have a baby. And so then, with a little baby, and this is what it's like for most writers, they've got something they have to really tend to. So I would write for the 3 hours while she was at the creche and then play school. And I longed for the time when they were in school for a day. And now I can write longer, so it's wonderful. But there's also always things that will interfere and draw you away. And here's one thing. People think that writers can always be taken away from their work to do something that they think is important. Like say your dear old mom needs you to take her to the doctor or stuff. And that's the hardest part for me. And I would never write while my children were at home needing me. Like I can't put one hand on the child and the other on the typewriter, pushing them away. So there's, and John Irving, for instance, he's pretty famous. He became the household keeper. He had the traditional wife's job, and he had to fit his writing in. So there's always something that is taking you away and drawing you away, and you have to just say, I have to be here. And when I'm taken away from my job, nobody does it for me, and nobody can do it for me. So that day is lost, and those days are lost if you keep doing so. You have to be really pretty bullshit.
That's your most difficult part, right, of writing? So what's the easiest part for you?
Actually, it's never really easy. I like it when, you know, the dialogue flows and things happen. I think it's more about the rewarding part, and the rewarding part. I do love to write, but it isn't really fun. It's something I love to concentrate on something and create something that I think is interesting and valuable. And that applies to all the professions. So I'm just someone like that, and I think writers are, and they have to be. Writers are not generally frivolous. They really aren't. But the rewards of writing are when the book is done and writers or readers come up to you and say what it means to them. And that's the real reward for me.
Okay. And one last question. How many times does a plot get edited before it's finally finished? I've
never had a plot edited. So, you know, I've never been asked to change what happens. But I have been asked to change the structure of the book. And I think that is more common. If someone told me to change what happens, I just couldn't do it. You know, because what happened is the result of what happened before and what happened before, and it would be unreal if they said, okay, you like make it happy at the end or something. But every writer needs to be prepared for being required to revise it in some ways. And when you're young and in high school, your teacher, when you write a story or an essay, you know, may say, you've got to really shorten that part, or you need to tell me a heck of a lot more about this part. And that's the way it is in if you're at the being edited stage of a novel. And an interesting experience. I hope this is useful to young people. When you've finished your novel, you've revised it to your satisfaction, you think it's ready to be seen. And you know, you may go through 2-3 major revisions before you feel it's ready for that. So you submit it, and you first should submit it to an agent, because an agent will do the work of getting a publisher for you. But it's hard. It's hard to get an agent. And when I submitted City Wolves, for instance, two out of 3 of the top agents said, I'm interested in this. However, the first one said, I'm not, you know, I think all the dog wolf story, no, like get right into the story of the first woman vet and just minimize that. And the other agent said to me, oh, the dogs, the wolves, best part, and minimize the childhood of the of the first woman vet and get everybody to the Klondike Gold Rush. So they're asking me to change the structure of it. And the third one said, I just can't deal with it. I don't know what to do with it, because, you know, novels are not generally about animals, and the novels that win prizes are not about animals. Like, you know, recently Andre Alexis was about animals, and it won. So here's what you have to know. If you have 2, you know, reputable agents saying opposite things, then you know that that dog part is valuable, because one says, and you know that the story of Meg is valuable as she grows up and becomes a vet, because the other one loves it. So you can't go with either of those agents, and I didn't. You know, I had to just forget the agents and go directly to the publishers. And I ended up with an editor who said, yeah, we want the dogs, and we want the veterinarian, and we want the gold rush. We want it all.